If you're a country seeking tariff relief, Dr. Don is ready to see you. While the market suffered from some side effects of taking tariff medicine, President Trump was seeking phenomenal offers and ready to deal. Vietnam just got their checkup. After getting slapped with one of the highest tariff rates, all it took was one phone call. And Trump says Nam is open to having zero tariffs. And if you believe Dr. Don's ready to operate on every country mooching off Uncle Sam,
the tariffs are here, and the world is paying attention. What the mainstream media calls reckless, others call strategy. What they call a gamble, others call bold leadership. Today, we're breaking down what's really happened behind President Trump's tariff move, why it's shaking up the global trade game, and why. Despite the media hysteria, this might just be one of the biggest power plays in modern American history.
But as usual, Democrats in the media are flatlining and taking off their shoes like it's a code blue in the spin room.
Here is a shoe. It's my shoe, right? It is made in China. You talked about these luxury products. Right, but you take your shoe off and see where it's made. Yes. Made in China, made in Vietnam. This is going to be 34% more expensive.
Made one of the dumbest decisions he's ever made as president, and that's saying a lot.
What Donald Trump has announced in terms of his tariffs is just plain dumb.
I began to understand how this is the only guy in America that could bankrupt multiple casinos.
Welcome back to the channel that tells it like it is. No fluff, no filter, just facts. Let's talk about President Trump's latest tariff strategy, which was spotlighted in a recent Fox News featuring Piers Morgan. The media is in full panic mode, and Democrats are crying foul. But here's what they won't tell you. Trump didn't just wake up one morning and decide to throw tariffs around like darts. This is economic warfare, and he's using America's greatest asset, its market access, as leverage. Vietnam, after being hit with high tariffs, picked up the phone and started negotiating. That's not a failure. That's a win. Trump's message to the world? If you want access to the biggest consumer market on earth, play fair or pay up.
So what's the recovery plan for the patient? Well, more U.S. manufacturing and jobs. This former auto worker says the tariffs are working and the so-called experts are all wrong.
Nobody was crying these crocodile tears when they were closing the Mound Road engine plant that Chrysler had in Macomb County, or the Romeo engine plant in Romeo, Michigan in Macomb County. But all of a sudden, now that we're trying to bring these products back, these components and these vehicles back to the United States, all of a sudden, all the so-called experts are saying it's going to plunge us into recession and be terrible for the economy.
Now, let's talk about the media's reaction. You've got anchors waving their Chinese-made shoes in the air, acting like it's the end of civilization because prices might go up by a few bucks. Let's be real. These are the same folks who stayed silent when American factories shut down and communities were hollowed out. But now that we're trying to bring those jobs back, suddenly they're economic experts. Where was the outrage when the Mound Road engine plant in Michigan was closed? Exactly.
And once upon a time, Democrats used to love tariffs.
It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity from nations like China that are no longer solely poor countries, to make sure that they're providing access to their markets.
The average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? The fact is that U.S.-China trade is a job loser.
Yeah. But how do you think this is affecting not just you, because I know it's all about you, Piers, but how do you think it's affecting people in this country? And when I say this country, I mean the U.S.
Well, look, I'm like 99% of people on social media. I'm 100% certain I have no idea if this is going to work. So everyone is either completely sure it's the greatest transformation thing we've ever seen in economic history, or a complete and utter disaster. And it seems to me like with a lot of things that Trump does, probably best to just take a beat, wait a bit, see how this plays out. In particular, see how all the countries respond. You're already beginning to see some movement with some of these countries racing to do a deal with Trump. if enough of them start to do that, you'll see the markets, who are basically like a bunch of lemmings running over a cliff at the best of times, they will roar back at the first sign that any of this appears to be working. However, I think it's an important caveat, this is one hell of a roll of the dice, because if you're out there and you're already struggling from a cost of living crisis, and you've got savings and maybe you've got some stocks and so on, you are looking at this and you're worried, you're concerned for your family, concerned how you're going to afford stuff. And I think that Trump has got to look at this very carefully, and he's got to pull out the art of the deal in spectacular fashion. Now, I would just say, I wouldn't bet against it.
Even Piers Morgan admitted it. This is a roll of the dice. Yes, but that doesn't mean it's reckless. He says, let's wait. Let's see how countries respond. And we already are seeing responses. Vietnam wants 0 tariffs. Jeep and Ford are giving Americans employee pricing. Manufacturing is coming home. This isn't chaos. This is leverage in action.
It does look like a gamble to us, Craig, but the president doesn't see it that way at all. He seems relaxed.
No, because by the way, I mean, he actually said this was going to happen. The media acts like it's a big surprise, but he said, yeah, there might be a rough patch at the beginning of the stock market. He's like the pilot that says, yeah, you know, it's going to be a little bumpy when we're going up, but then it's going to smooth out and we'll get you home safely. The media is the guy that sits next to you, and every single thud of turbulence goes, we're all going to die. And Piers is right. It's like we're only getting a half opinion.
Here's a stat you didn't hear on CNN. The average U.S. tariff on Chinese goods? 2%. China's tariff on U.S. goods? 35%. That's not trade. That's exploitation. Trump's plan is simple. Demand reciprocity, equal footing, fairness. Something past presidents talked about but never dared to enforce.
The half opinion is look at the stock market go down. They don't say, well, you know, it goes back up. I mean, I know Nancy Pelosi, net worth $270 million. Since the tariffs, she's lost $7 million, or about 2.5%. Do you think she's okay? I think so. She's going to get that money back in time for Botox season. Money moves around, and a half opinion is when an idiot tells you it just goes down. And for example, I couldn't tell you what the stock market was last week, the week before that, because you don't look at it. I'm perplexed by the notion that all tariffs are bad when countries put tariffs on our products. It's a tool that is used in specific environments. Not all environments, some.
Look, we're not saying this won't sting. People are worried. Costs might rise short term. Stock markets may dip. That's expected. But just like a pilot warns about turbulence before takeoff, Trump warned us too. He said it would be rough at the start, but smoother skies ahead. And if this plan brings jobs, boosts manufacturing, and ends America's reliance on countries that don't play by the rules, isn't that worth it?
Yeah, because Vietnam called and they want to drop their duties down to 0, Katie. So that guy's Nikes that he just held up, they're not going to go up at all.
Yeah, well, that's because Vietnam needs access to the American market to keep their country afloat, which is why they're calling and asking to negotiate. When President Trump made his trip to China in 2017, this was a topic of discussion. And I was actually there a week after he was in the country. And the number one complaint from the Commerce Department was there's no reciprocity here on anything, not to mention goods. We're trying to get into the Chinese market. We're not allowed to. We're not allowed to send the product without having a tax. So this has been an issue that the president addressed in his first term kind of as a test, and it worked out fine. So now they're going full force with his actual plan for tariffs.
And here's something you probably didn't know. 94% of the shrimp in America comes from Southeast Asia and Ecuador. Many of these imports use unsafe practices, slave labor, and banned chemicals. We're protecting these countries with money and defense, while our workers get shafted. That ends now. Tariffs aren't just about dollars. They're about values, sovereignty, safety, and dignity.
Yeah, next week, Judge, you could bounce right back.
Yeah, and I think that what Piers was saying when you said it was a roll of the dice, and, you know, we don't know whether it's going to work or it's not going to work. When you think about the guy who is throwing the dice, okay, you've got a guy who took care of the caliphate in what, a few weeks that was driving the world crazy. You've got the southern border, as you say so accurately, is now nobody's crossing the border. We got a good job numbers today. We now have manufacturing coming back to the United States, $1 trillion he's gotten foreign investments into this country. So when you start reading all the tea leaves, he's setting up the game. Everything is starting to coalesce. And just today, we had a readout from, Vietnam. He's willing to say, hey, we need you. I'm willing to go to zero. Jeep and Ram is now selling all of their vehicles to Americans at employee prices. Ford is selling vehicles to Americans at employee prices. And then you've got the pausing of the minivans and Jeeps being made in Mexico and Canada because they realize that that's not going to work anymore, that they're going to have to make them in the United States.
Trump's not playing small ball. He's swinging for the fences. He already tackled the caliphate. He secured the southern border. He's pulled in over $1 trillion in foreign investments. And now, he's aiming at the heart of the trade imbalance that has hurt American workers for decades. Is it risky? Yes, but every real change is. And unlike the other guy who printed $5 trillion and triggered historic inflation, this move actually targets the source of the bleeding.
And the uncertainty in the stock market, it isn't necessarily a negative. It can be an indication that things are going to work out. It's just that they're uncertain right now. And you got a president who's swinging for the fences. You got a president who's punching.
So don't buy the media fear. Don't panic because prices might go up on luxury sneakers or imported shrimp. This is a strategic reset. This is America saying, we're done being taken advantage of. And if it works, it'll be remembered not as a gamble, but as the moment America fought back.
And the American industries have been getting killed. And today we heard about the shrimp industry. I didn't know anything about it. But 94% of the shrimp in this country comes from Southeast Asia and Ecuador. And they don't have any of the protections. They're pond-raised, farm-raised, illegal hormones, antibiotics, slave trade, all that stuff. And yet we keep protecting these other countries, defending them, giving them money. And we're basically saying, sock us in the face again. No more. It's time for the American worker to survive.
Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are these tariffs the right move, or just the beginning of something even bigger? Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and always ask what's the real truth. Thank you, and God bless. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are these tariffs the right move, or just the beginning of something even bigger? Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and always ask what's the real truth. Thank you, and God bless.